What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. Monster episode on tap for you this week. We obviously have a huge matchup between the Patriots and the Bills that we are going to be dissecting in detail with our friend Tyler Dunne of GoLongTD.com. He's actually working on a Drake Maye story right now that you're going to want to keep an eye out for. Make sure you're subscribing to his site. He was phenomenal, tremendous conversation there. But I want to start the podcast today by talking about the Patriots defense. I know. We talk so much about Drake Maye on this particular pod, but I believe this week their defense is going to determine the outcome. Number one, you have to stop James Cook in this Buffalo Bills running game, one of the most efficient rush attacks in the league. And since week 9, the Patriots defense, believe it or not, one of the worst in football against the run. They are 31st in EPA per rushing attempt since week 9. Not where you want to be in a conversation with the New York Giants among the worst in football in that particular phase of your defense. Something you have to get cleaned up down the stretch, and it should start this week. Maybe they can get Kairos Tonga back. It looks like he's healthy and trending toward a return. That could help, but they are just going to need to bow up against Cook and this rushing offense, which obviously includes Josh Allen. You do not want to make him a runner, by the way. This is one of the best scrambling quarterbacks in football. When you look at it, the yardage with his legs, no quarterback has more yards on scrambles than Josh Allen this season. He's top 10 in passing yards in scramble drill situations and passing touchdowns in scramble drill situations, has just one pick in a scramble drill situation this year. So for me, the optimal strategy seems to be to keep Josh Allen in the pocket, try to make him beat you from there. But what does Mike Vrabel think? I asked him about that a little bit earlier this week.
Well, you keep him in the pocket, and he's just going to stand there and wait for somebody to uncover. So, you know what I mean? Again, you can keep him in the pocket. You can stand there, and we can all just stand there, and he'll do this. And, I mean, you have to just, again, coordinated and relentless is probably the best way to phrase it. You know, when he does extend, then we're going to need a plaster and, have guys, be able to come up and help us.
I understand what Mike Vrabel's saying there. You don't want to just let Josh Allen pick you apart from the pocket because he's dynamite no matter where he is. He can kill you from right behind center. He can kill you from outside the tackles as well. I just would point out, in Buffalo's 3 losses on the road, they're 3-3 on the road this year. All 3 losses, they have not cracked 20 points. And in all 3 losses, Josh Allen has struggled from the pocket. Against the Atlanta Falcons, completed just 57% of his passes from the pocket, had a 74.7 rating from the pocket. Against the Miami Dolphins, 13 points, only 6.6 yards per attempt from the pocket. Against the Houston Texans, only a 72.2 rating and 2 picks from the pocket in that game. He can be great from there, but if you can figure it out, that to me is the better strategy than letting him run around and create plays with his legs. All right, what does Tyler Dunne think about what the critical matchups will be this weekend between the Bills and the Patriots? Will the Patriots be able to win the division title for the first time in a post-Tom Brady world? Great conversation with Tyler. Here it is. There he is, the great Tyler Dunne. Tyler, thank you so much for being with us. You're joining us from Houston, doing a big, long series of features, is my guess, on the Houston Texans of the season they're having. So thanks for taking some time out to hang with Next Pats.
Oh, we always got to make time for Phil Perry. It's always great hearing from you. It's Bills, it's Patriots, and the stakes are pretty damn high. I think we're going to see more than 3 pass attempts out of the quarterback in this this game between the two teams. So it should be entertaining.
No question about it. I think there's going to be a lot of points on the board in this game. You're going to have 2 of the best quarterbacks in football going at it, which is not something I thought we would be sitting here saying about Drake Maye and talking about him in those terms coming into this season. But boy, he has developed so quickly, and you have had a firsthand opportunity to watch the development of Josh Allen. We talked to you early in the season, and there were some comparisons to be made there. Are we talking about quarterbacks, Tyler, that are on similar tiers here, or is there still a healthy gap between these 2 players in your estimation?
No, I think they're on the same tier without a doubt, Phil. I mean, what Drake Maye has done this year, I know that the naysayers, the skeptics, the cynics, if there's any remaining, they might point to the level of competition. But, I mean, Drake Maye isn't just winning these games in nail-biting fashion with a turnover on defense and a blocked kick on special teams. No, they are eviscerating these opponents, humiliating these opponents. And you know what? I actually chatted with his quarterback's coach from last season, TC McCartney. We'll have a story at Go Long Friday morning if people want to check that out. A lot of insight from TC. It's kind of funny, Phil. You know, the coaches there in Chicago, and really fired coaches for any young quarterbacks, you know, when they're critical of those quarterbacks, you'll hear people say, oh, they just have sour grapes, and oh, they just have an axe to grind. Well, you talk to TC, you talk to people who were around Drake Maye last year. They saw it then. This is one of the smartest people they've ever been around. The pre-snap processing, the post-snap, you know, vision, spatial awareness is all there. And then you factor in the arm strength, the touch, the athleticism. Drake Maye is the entire package. I think he's got a shot to lock up the MVP this season. If he beats the reigning MVP and then beats a two-time MVP the following week, Drake Maye is your MVP. But I'll tell you what, Josh Allen's still playing damn good football. He's throwing this team on his back. This game is going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and I'd love to see them play again in the playoffs.
Oh, I'm with you there. Getting this game a third time would be tremendous for all involved. And I'm curious because, you know, you're there, you're a Western New York guy, you've got your finger on the pulse, Tyler. And so I am curious, how are fans feeling about this particular matchup? Do they look at this as a chance to, you know, bully younger brother and put him back in his place where he belongs in their estimation? Or are there some nerves? Is there some nervousness in the Buffalo area that, oh, God, the Patriots, they're actually a threat again, and they might take our division crown away from the team that's had it for these last so many years?
I honestly think it's the latter, Phil. I think that there is some anxiety that has been steadily building from, you know, September, when you're seeing that Drake Maye is legit and you're having, you know, flashbacks to Josh Allen's second year, third year, when he really ascended. That's what you're seeing out of Drake Maye. Now, we talked about it there at Patriot Place, well, you know, way back, the similarities between these two quarterbacks and the way that the teams have built around these two quarterbacks. Yeah, I think there's a fear. You've got a whole generation of Bills fans that has just been tortured by the New England Patriots, tortured by Tom Brady. They don't want to go through that again for 10, 15 years. Like, they see Josh Allen's window potentially closing. You know, there's a lot of reasons that you could feel that way, whether it's personnel, coaching in January, injuries that could pile up for a quarterback who puts his body on the line. So it's definitely a blend of the two. But I'll say this, like, things can change in a hurry. And the way that Josh Allen played against Cincinnati, I mean, on the heels of beating Pittsburgh, but that Cincinnati game when he had this duel with Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow's up by 10 with 6.5, 7 minutes to go. I think the ESPN probabilities were 91.6% chance New England's going to win the game after that touchdown to Mike Gesicki, and he's doing the gritty in the end zone. The way that Josh Allen just freaking turned it on, put the team on his back. I think it wasn't a complete 180, but people are thinking Super Bowl in Western New York again, and they know that this team has flaws. They absolutely have flaws. This might be Buffalo's worst team, you know, since 2019. But these fans are looking at the entire AFC and they're saying, you know, we've got a chance. Like, this is wide open. You know, the Texans beat the hell out of Josh Allen and the Bills, but Buffalo's right there till the very end. Like, and they turned the ball over in that game, and they were right there with New England. They know that New England's young, so yeah, even though that this team is flawed, I think that the fans are still justifiably thinking we can win the Super Bowl because we've got Josh Allen and you don't. But the one team that they're worried about would be the Patriots and Drake Maye, because I think that there are so many parallels between these two teams and how they've ascended to this point.
Yeah, it's a great comparison. It's what makes this matchup in some ways so fun. And I think about that word you used, anxiety, and I wonder, it just feels like, Tyler, there's a lot of pressure on this year's Buffalo Bills. Coming into the season, they were, by a lot of accounts, the favorites to come out of the AFC, and this was going to be their year. And Josh Allen's coming off an MVP winning season, and they've been so close in the past with him. It felt like, okay, 2025, that's the year they get over the hump. If they're not able to do it, if the Patriots, for instance, beat them this Sunday, now they've won the division. Now Buffalo's road maybe gets a little bit tougher through the postseason. They'll make it, but maybe it's a little bit tougher. If they don't have the kind of season that a lot of people there are expecting, and maybe put ownership at the top of the list, do you anticipate there being some big changes made to make sure that the organization gets the right people, or maybe just a different cast of people around the quarterback who we know isn't going anywhere?
You're right. To your first point, this has got to be the year. I feel like the Bills and their fans have been saying that year to year, especially when the Chiefs' offense was regressing. But look, Patrick Mahomes, barring a miracle, which I guess you can't completely write them off, but I'll write them off after they lost to Houston. No Mahomes. I mean, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they don't look right. I mean, Lamar looks broken. Good chance they're not in the playoffs. Joe Burrow, very good chance that he's not going to be in the playoffs. You've got a lane, if you're Josh Allen, if you're the Buffalo Bills, to finally, once and for all, get to the Super Bowl and win it. It's Super Bowl or bust. I don't care what anybody says. That's the bar. When you've been as close as they've been, and you've built the team the way they've built the team. Honestly, I might be in the minority on this. I love what Brandon Beane did in the offseason. Look, it's the defense that's been holding this team back in January. They can't get a stop. They can't get a turnover. I mean, the numbers just bleed off the screen, what Mahomes has done and Burrow in the one game at Orchard Park. So yeah, draft 5 defensive players with your first 5 picks. Sign Bosa, Ogunjobi, Hoyt. Do whatever the hell you can to finally get that turnover, get that stop. This team needs to be judged in January. So for all the ups and downs all year, it's still about what you do in that moment. Very good chance they're going to have to go on the road. They're not very good on the road. I mean, they're fine, but it's been quite average when they take it on the road. I forget what their record is.
3-3,
2023.
Oh, so yeah, but this year I know they're 3-3, right? In their 3 losses, that offense has struggled a little bit.
Take it back a year and a half. I mean, they really have been average on the road for whatever reason. Whatever that is, getting on a plane and getting out of Orchard Park. So that's probably going to be their road. And if it gets to that point, right, to get ahead of ourselves, to answer your question, maybe there is a head that rolls. I bite my tongue though, because the owners also own the hockey team in Buffalo, and they haven't been that good. And there haven't been a lot of changes with management when it comes to the Buffalo Sabres. They're moving into a new stadium next year. The Bills are. Are they really going to want to break in a new coach? I don't know. I would still say it's very, very slim, right or wrong, that they would fire anybody if they get to the playoffs and win a game. But you never know, right? Like, the pressure's different in the NFL, and maybe Terry Pegula looks at it and says, hey, we've got Josh Allen, we've got one of the best players on the planet, and what do we have to show for it? We've got to do something.
I'm interested to hear why this matchup might play out differently this weekend, Tyler, than it did in Week 5, right? So the Patriots win 23-20. They get that great drive from Drake Maye at the end of the game to win it. There were a lot of what I felt were uncharacteristic mistakes on the Bills' end of things in that game, and especially early in that game. I don't know if you've seen those quote-unquote uncharacteristic mistakes become a little bit representative of who they are in 2025 for some reason, because it does feel like there's more turnovers this year, Tyler. There's more penalties. Yeah. Will we see that same kind of performance, do you think, at Gillette Stadium when they are sort of a mediocre team on the road, or will this game be much different than that first matchup, in your opinion?
You know, their turnover differential was bonkers last season. God, I should be at the tip of my tongue. I want to say, including the playoffs, it was something like plus 28. It was nuts. They took care of the ball. They took the ball away. Their offensive line stayed healthy all season. So it was very hard to see that happening again. Like, the ball is shaped funny for a reason. It's going to bounce the other team's direction. You're going to have an injury or two on the offensive line, and that's what's happened. You know, James Cook has had some costly fumbles for this team in some critical moments, and he's one of the best running backs in football. I mean, he actually has gotten a lot better, but he's had some turnovers. Keon Coleman, I'm thinking back to that Patriots game. You drafted him not because he's going to run away from anybody. They knew his separation numbers were bad, but they thought that he could bully cornerbacks. I think Marcus Jones, right, who's, you know, much shorter and much lighter than Keon Coleman, made a play on Keon Coleman in that game. That can't happen. So I don't know if those areas are really fixed since then. I mean, they still are having, you know, a turnover here and there. Keon Coleman, you know, he was benched for a couple weeks, you know, for his stuff off the field and stuff on the field. I will say this. I just think that Drake Maye is a hell of a lot better since that game. I think Josh Allen is better since that game. And it's going to come down to these two quarterbacks. I think it's who has the ball last. I think both teams are going to put up points regardless of the conditions. I don't care how cold it is. I don't care how snowy it is, whether it's in Foxborough or Orchard Park. Both of these quarterbacks are impervious to the conditions. They're that talented. And it's going to be a matter of who has the ball last, who can play Superman. I know it seems simplistic, but these guys are that good. We might be watching the two best quarterbacks in the sport on Sunday.
You're right. They were plus 24 in turnover differential last year. Just an insane total. They led the league by a landslide. They only had 8 turnovers total over the course of the season. And this year it has been a little bit different. They're up to 18. So if you're the Patriots, maybe you're seeing opportunity there, but the Patriots haven't been great at taking the football away this year either. So it'll be interesting to see how it looks on Sunday at Gillette Stadium. Tyler Dunne, thank you so much for being with us, my friend. Go enjoy that Texas sunshine. Can't wait to read whatever it is you have on the Houston Texans coming out of Houston. Thanks so much for sharing some of your time with us here today on Expats.
Hey, thank you, Phil. Like I told you, it's a 90-degree shift. You go from negative 10 in the morning taking the kids to school to 80 degrees here. I'm not built for it, man. I'm sweating like a fool. I look like a fish out of water. I'm not in my natural habitat, but duty calls, man. They've got some barbaric savages down here, so we got to tell their story.
That is you in your element. You want to be around the savages. I love that about you. I know your readers do too. Go check them out at golongtd.com. Tyler, thanks again for being with us, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Phil.
Coming up next on Next Pats, we're getting back into our Who's Next segment. We have a couple of college defenders that you need to know about. Both playing premium positions, both seem as though they could be fits in Mike Vrabel's system. We're also taking some of your mail. It's all next on Next Pats. Welcome back to Next Pats. Let's launch right into our Who's Next segment. This is where we get to talk about the draftees or potential draftees this coming spring, guys that might be fits for the New England Patriots, and specifically what Mike Vrabel wants. He wants violent. He wants disruptive on the defensive side. He wants guys that create explosive plays on the offensive side. Well, this week, we're focusing on all defense, and it's on a couple of premium positions. One name on the edge and one name at corner. Let's start with that edge defender. It's TJ Parker out of Clemson, widely considered to be a first-round pick, really since the start of this past season, and easy to understand why. He exploded on the scene a couple years ago as a true freshman at Clemson, where he had 12.5 tackles for loss. Then last season, he ends up forcing 6 fumbles. This guy is a disruptive pass rusher and really projects as a true 3-down edge defender because of his size and his length. Measures about 6'3", 260 pounds. We'll get official measurements on him prior to the draft. He actually just declared for the draft this past week, so we know he's coming out. He's going to be a pro, and he seems like the kind of guy who, if you're looking for a true base end who could do a little bit of everything, play you on early downs and stop the run, play on passing downs and get after quarterbacks, that's DJ Parker. Now, is he explosive enough to get after quarterbacks in a way that Mike Vrabel would appreciate? This past season, those tackle for loss numbers actually came down. Was at 9.5 there. In terms of the sack numbers, those are down as well. He had 11 last year, just 5 this year in 12 games. And when you look at his athletic profile, maybe not the twitchiest edge defender in this year's class, and typically that seems to be what Mike Vrabel wants. When you look at Harold Landry at his best, when you look at Kayvon Chason at his best, and then you look at somebody like Anthony Jennings, who was on the verge of not being on the team this year when the season began, I think you have a good sense of what it is that Vrabel and this defensive staff are looking for, and that might not be TJ Parker. They should be looking, though. And who knows? Maybe TJ Parker blows up the combine and he looks a little bit more explosive than I'm anticipating. But Kayvon Chason's on a 1-year deal. Harold Landry, closer to the end than the beginning. This is a position where they need reinforcements. They need to get younger, and maybe TJ Parker's an option. Next on the list, at corner out of LSU, is Mansour Delan. This guy transferred from Virginia Tech and has quickly made himself a potential first-round pick and maybe a top half of the first round kind of player. If that's the case, he might be out of range for the New England Patriots. But let's talk about him anyway because he does feel like the kind of corner that Mike Vrabel likes. He can play man. He can play zone. Our buddy Dane Brugler of The Athletic, we had him on the show last week. I know he's written about DeLon as the best cover corner in the country this season. He allowed just 13 completions, which is the same number of pass breakups he had this year for the Tigers. Ridiculous numbers for him. Did not allow a touchdown in coverage. 3 years at Virginia Tech. Really impressive there. Started 29 consecutive games. He was a third-team All-ACC honoree in 2024, but he really put himself on the map this year in the SEC, playing against some of the best, and performed with aplomb. I mean, this guy, even though he might be a little undersized, right? Talking 5'10", maybe 5'11", right around 190 pounds. The arm length is not ideal. But when you're as competent as he appears to be, both in man and zone coverage, for a team like the New England Patriots, which this season has hovered around 30% man coverage, 70% zone coverage, and depending on the week, that will change. That's the kind of player who could fit. Now, you might be sitting here saying, they don't really need a corner, Perry. They have Christian Gonzalez, and you're right, maybe he ends up getting extended this offseason. They have Carlton Davis, and you're right, he is still under contract for next season, and Marcus Jones just signed a nice new big deal. The reason why you might want to invest here is because after next season, that second spot, if Christian Gonzalez has locked down that number one spot and you want to give him that big money deal, that to me is the spot that you might just want to start thinking about. Carlton Davis has had a really good year this year, but we know he's missed time in the past with injury. We know he's been in the league for a while now. That might just be because that position is so important. That might be a spot where you would invest a draft pick. I don't know if it'd be a first-round pick, which it appears DeLon will be, but worth bringing up the name because, again, feels like a fit for what Vrabel and his staff would want there. All right, let's dig into some of your mail here now. Got some phenomenal questions for our mailbag this week. It's over on NBCSportsBoston.com if you haven't seen it already. We're going to start with this question from my buddy Joe Quietek, who asked, what is the most concerning weakness of this Patriots team that no one is talking about or noticing? What I would say, Joe, if it's not their run defense, which we talked about off the top of the program here, it's probably their offensive running game. They're 29th in success rate this season. Not where you want to be, just not efficient enough, and they're putting so much on the plate of their young quarterback. And yes, he's handled it all. He's handled it tremendously well to the point where he might be the most valuable player in the league. But as you get later in the season, as the weather gets worse, as you see better defenses, you're going to need to be able to run the football. And so we talked about some potential fixes on last week's episode during the bye week where, hey, with motion, the Patriots actually average 4.5 yards per carry. So maybe a little bit more deception in their run game could yield better results. When they run wide zone, last couple of months especially, they're averaging over 4 yards per carry. So if you want to get out into space, maybe rely a little bit more on Travion Henderson. Maybe that's something they could do in order to maybe generate some explosive plays and just help their overall numbers with that run game. And I think if you can do that, suddenly your red zone numbers would improve as well. But to me, it's about the run game. And I was able to ask Garrett Bradbury earlier this week if he feels as though they have the fixes in mind to improve their run game moving forward down the stretch these last 4 regular season games of the year here. And he said, quote, I think there's things that we've done really well and there's things that we can improve. A lot of it is technique things. It wasn't necessarily scheme. We went through all those points on certain types of run plays. Hey, we can get better here and here. Now we got to go on the practice field and we got to show up on Sunday and do those things. So we'll see if they improve against what has been a really pretty bad run defense from the Buffalo Bills over the course of the 2025 season. Next question. More Patriots run game. Given their struggles in the run game, says Maine Murph, when they do run, why haven't the Patriots tried to be more right-handed since Morgan Moses and Micah Wenu are their 2 best healthy offensive linemen? Now we're really getting into the weeds, but I love it. This is what the Next Pats podcast is all about. Let's get down into the nitty-gritty details, Murph, about the directions of their runs and just how effective they are. And some of the numbers I found, according to Sports Info Solutions at least, were really interesting. They've run right of center 157 times this year, for 4.8 yards per carry. That is healthy, especially considering they averaged 3.9 on all carries this season. They are, however, 21st in EPA per attempt when running right. So it's not as though this is a panacea if they just start handing off and running behind Onwenu and Morgan Moses. But your point is a good one. What your eyes have told you, Murph, is correct. The Patriots have liked to run left more often. They've handed off and gone left 192 times. So 192 versus 157 for an average of 3.8 yards per carry this season. So they're a full 1 yard per carry less on average running left than they are running right, and they're 26th in EPA per attempt when they run in that direction. So let's add it to the list, okay? Maybe a little bit more motion, maybe a little bit more wide zone, maybe a little bit more running right, and especially now, right? Will Campbell's out of the mix. Jared Wilson has been banged up, although they may get him back this week to play Buffalo. But Mike Onwenu, Morgan Moses, those guys have been your staples. Those are your bigger bodies. Those are your veterans. Those are your big money guys, right? You signed Morgan Moses to be your staple on the right side this offseason. Mike Onwenu got paid a couple of off seasons ago. Maybe they can rely on what those guys do in the run game a little bit more often to just get more consistent results and take something off of the shoulders of Drake Maye every once in a while. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Next Pats podcast. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks so much to Tyler Dunne of GoLongTD.com for sharing some time with us as well. Enjoy the game this weekend. Should be one of the best of the season. We'll be right back here next week breaking it all down and looking ahead to Patriots-Ravens. We'll talk to you next time.